At 47, I thought I had everything. Corner office, 8-figure salary, boardroom respect. Then, on a rainy Thursday in Tokyo, my father's assistant called. "He's gone," she whispered, "but before he died, he said you'd be the next CEO." I froze. I had spent the last 10 years building his empire, jet-setting across time zones, shaking hands with foreign investors. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, family dinners, always chasing something bigger. I thought he understood. I thought I had time. What I didn't know was that while I was finalizing a billion-dollar merger, my father had been writing me letters, 36 of them, one every year since I joined the company. He never sent a single one, and now he was gone. No last hug, no final words, just a title and a coffin. That night, staring at my hotel ceiling, I realized I wasn't mourning just a man. I was grieving decades of silence between us. I thought I was becoming him, but the truth? I had no idea who he really was. What happened next wasn't part of the plan. I turned down the CEO seat. I went home, to a family I had nearly lost. I opened every letter he never sent, and I found a version of my father I had never known. A version of myself I had forgotten how to be. If you've ever wondered what it takes to rebuild what you've broken, stay with me. This isn't a story about business. It's about redemption. And it starts with everything I thought I knew, falling apart. Banjan Sansang Je Min Viet, Chapter 1A, The Golden Cage Builder, 1902 Chua. My name is Jack Whitmore, and I'm 47 years old. People call me a success story. Harvard MBA, former VP at Goldstein Sachs, now CFO of Whitmore Capital, the company my father built from nothing. They say I'm next in line to be CEO. It was always the plan. At least it was his plan. My father, Charles Whitmore, was the kind of man you didn't say no to. He didn't demand obedience. He inspired it. Every room he walked into became quieter, sharper. Growing up, I admired him the way a soldier admires a general, from a distance, with discipline and a deep hunger to someday earn his salute. He told me once when I was 12 and had just won a debate championship at school, "One day you'll sit in my chair, but not because you're my son, because you'll be better than me." I carried that sentence like a commandment, so I built my life to match his vision. Every choice, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, all aimed at one thing, being worthy. I got into Harvard because I had to. I joined Wall Street because that's where the real players tested themselves. I got married at 30 to Emma, smart, elegant, grounded, the kind of woman my father would respect. We had 2 children within 5 years, a son and a daughter. Perfect symmetry. We had a house in Westchester with the white picket fence, the golden retriever, the weekend soccer games. From the outside, we looked like the Whitmore brand personified. But it wasn't built on intimacy. It was structure, routine, schedules. I loved them, I think, in my own way. I just never learned how to show it. Not like a husband, not like a father. I showed love the way I thought men were supposed to, by providing, by achieving. At work, I was a machine. 16-hour days, red-eye flights, quarterly wins. I climbed through finance like it owed me something, like the top would finally unlock the validation I'd been chasing since that day my father made me promise I'd be better than him. He never repeated that promise. He didn't have to. Every time he glanced at me in the boardroom, I searched his face for approval. Every nod meant everything. Every frown wrecked me. Still, he never gave me the chair. Not yet. And I told myself it was because the timing wasn't right. The market was volatile. The shareholders needed stability. But deep down, I wondered, was I not ready? Or was he still unsure? Then came the Tokyo expansion. We'd been strategizing for years, and the board finally greenlit the move. A massive opportunity, entry into Asia-Pacific finance. But it required someone to live overseas for 6 months, maybe longer. My father didn't blink before naming me. "It has to be you," he said. "No one else can make this deal land." And I said yes. Of course I did. Because I always did. Emma didn't protest at first. She'd learned by now. Arguing with me about work was like arguing with gravity. Instead, she stood at the doorway that night, arms folded, watching me pack. "Lily asked me something today," she said quietly. She asked why her dad never eats dinner with her. I paused, hands still on the zipper of my suitcase. "She's 5, Emma continued. "She still believes dads are supposed to show up." "I'll FaceTime every night," I offered. Like that made it better. Like that changed anything. Emma didn't argue, she just nodded, but her eyes, they were tired. Not from raising 2 kids, from raising them alone. I left the next morning. The Tokyo deal consumed me. Time zones blurred, contracts expanded, our valuations spiked. Investors smiled. I kept moving like I always did. And every week, my father called. "When are you coming back?" he'd ask. "Soon," I'd reply. "Just need to finalize this quarter's numbers." "We should talk, Jack. Just you and me." "Of course. After this closes, you know how it is." One night, I missed his call. Twice. My assistant said he'd been trying to reach me. I sent him a quick email. "Swamped today. Call you tomorrow." He didn't call again. Instead, Emma did. It was a quiet, broken voice on the other end of the line. "He's gone, Jack. Your father's gone. The house didn't smell like home. It smelled like cinnamon pancakes and lemon cleaner, sweet and sterile." I stepped through the front door quietly, unsure of what kind of welcome, if any, waited for me. No one rushed to greet me, no excited footsteps, no hug from Emma. It was dinner time. I walked toward the kitchen. The table was set. 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 chairs. Mine was missing. Emma stood at the stove, flipping something in a pan. Lily sat on a booster seat, coloring. Noah scrolled on his tablet, earbuds in. None of them noticed me right away. It was the kind of domestic stillness I'd seen in movies. Warm, ordinary, and terrifying. Emma turned first. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You're early." I took the red-eye. She nodded once, then turned back to the pan. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge, if you're hungry." I didn't respond. I didn't know how. The air between us was thick, fragile, like walking through a museum of everything I'd missed. That night, after the kids went to bed, I found a small leather journal on Lily's desk. It was open to a page with her crooked handwriting. If I were a meeting, maybe Daddy would show up. The words didn't hit me all at once. They burned slowly, like acid. In Tokyo, I was a name etched on glass. Here, I was barely a shadow. Later, in the bedroom, Emma was folding laundry, calm, mechanical. "She's been seeing a therapist," she said, not looking up. "So has Noah." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Why didn't you tell me?" She gave a short laugh, not amused. "I used to, but eventually I stopped wanting to hear you say, 'I'll make it up to them.' I wanted to defend myself, say I was building a future for us, but I couldn't. Not after that journal. Not after seeing my chair missing from the table. "I'm sorry," I said instead. She didn't answer. 2 weeks passed. My father's health declined rapidly. He was coughing more, missing board calls. Still, he never told me what was wrong. Not directly, but Emma knew. "He's sicker than he lets on," she told me one night, her voice tight. "You should talk to him." "He'll call if he needs something," I said, distracted by emails. "He doesn't want something, Jack. He wants you. He's always wanted results, not conversation." She stared at me for a long moment. "I almost left you last year," she said quietly. "I packed a bag, I had a plan. But then he came over. Your father." I looked up, stunned. "He asked me to wait," she continued. "Said you'd come around, that he saw himself in you, and that scared him." My throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was still hoping he was right." The next morning, I received an email from his assistant. Subject line: confidential. Inside was a scanned letter. My name was handwritten at the top in my father's sharp, old-fashioned cursive. No greeting, no summary, just the first line visible in the preview. "There are things I never told you." I didn't open it. I told myself I was too busy, too emotional, too whatever. The truth was, I was afraid that whatever was in that letter would unravel me, and I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Not when I was still supposed to take the helm. 3 days later, I was on stage in Tokyo receiving the Business Leader of the Year award. Cameras flashed. Applause filled the room. I smiled for pictures, shook hands with dignitaries. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, then it buzzed again, and again. I finally glanced at the screen. 4 missed calls, all from Emma. I excused myself, stepping into a hallway. The moment I heard her voice, I knew. "He's gone, Jack." The hallway blurred. My knees weakened. I leaned against the wall, breath caught in my chest. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Neither did I. At the funeral, hundreds came, executives, family, old friends. They all shared stories about my father, the mentor, the builder, the man who gave second chances. But none of them knew about the letter. After the service, I returned to his study. Emma had placed the original envelope on the desk. I opened it slowly, hands trembling. "Jack," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer here to speak these words to you myself." I kept reading. Through memories, regrets, and a brutal honesty, I had never heard from him face to face. Then, the final line: "You will be the next CEO, but I am no longer sure if you deserve it." The first time I cried at the funeral was hours after it ended. During the service, I didn't shed a tear. I stood by the casket, shook hands, accepted condolences like I was chairing a board meeting. Composed, numb, distant. My father would have approved, or at least, that's what I told myself. But when the last guest left and the house fell into silence, Emma handed me a small envelope. "This isn't for you," she said, "but you need to read it." It was addressed to her, in his handwriting. A private letter, no CCs, no titles. I hesitated. I shouldn't. "He wanted me to give it to you. After." I opened it. Inside was not a farewell. It was a confession. "I once thought Jack would lead this company with his mind," my father had written. "Now I worry he's lost his soul." He spoke of his regrets, the pressure he'd placed on me, the moments he wished he'd just been a father, not a founder. And then came the sentence that cracked something inside me. "I've begun preparing an alternative plan. Someone who understands people, not just numbers." I don't know if Jack remembers how to love anything that doesn't come with a quarterly report. Emma sat across the room, watching me. "He was going to choose someone else, wasn't he?" I asked. She nodded. "He didn't want to, but he couldn't trust the legacy to someone who didn't believe in anything beyond growth." I couldn't speak. My throat burned. The pages shook in my hands. Days later, the board called an emergency session. The tone was professional, but the message was clear. The role of CEO was no longer a birthright. I'd have to earn it, present a new vision, convince them I still belonged. And I had nothing. The man who'd always had a strategy, a pitch, a pivot, was silent. That night, I came home late. Emma was waiting in the kitchen. "I think we should take some space," she said. My heart sank. "Emma, this isn't about cheating. This isn't about revenge. It's about breathing. I can't do this anymore." "I'm trying. I know. But you're not here. Even when you are, you're not." I wanted to argue. Instead, I asked quietly, "Do the kids know?" Noah's pretending not to care. Lily won't even ask. She's tired of the disappointment. The next day, I went to Lily's school, waited outside. She walked right past me, didn't even glance. I called out gently, "Lily." She stopped, but didn't turn. "I'm sorry," I said, "for everything." She whispered without facing me, "You always say that. Then you leave again." I didn't follow her. Later that week, I searched Emma's closet for a storage box where we kept old photo albums. I needed to see something, anything, that proved I had once been part of this family. What I found instead was a bundle of envelopes, all sealed. My name written in familiar cursive. I counted them. 36. Letters from my father. Years' worth. One for every birthday since I joined the company. I opened the first. "Happy 31st, son. I saw you handle the Q3 crisis like a Whitmore today. I'm proud, but I miss the way you used to laugh." The next one. "Year 33. Emma tells me you missed Lily's first dance recital. I know you're building something. Just remember, I built it so I could be there for you." Another. "I wish I had told you I was scared when your mother died. I wish I had let you see me cry." Tears blurred the ink as I opened the 10th, then the 11th. I couldn't stop. He had never stopped writing, and Emma, she had kept them from me. When I confronted her, she didn't flinch. "He asked me not to give them to you unless you asked." "Why?" "Because he wanted to know if you cared enough to look beyond work, to want something real." I collapsed into a chair, breathless. "He said," Emma continued, "that you needed to learn how to talk, not command. That you love outcomes, not people." I dropped my face into my hands. My chest ached. Not like heartbreak, like collapse. And then I broke. Not a single tear, but sobs. Ugly, shaking, uncontrolled sobs. Emma stood there watching. She didn't speak, didn't move. But in that moment, I think she finally saw me. Not as the man she married, not as the father of her kids, not as the heir to a billion-dollar legacy, but as her broken husband, the one who'd forgotten how to be anything else. I didn't walk into the boardroom with a presentation. I walked in with a resignation. "I'm not taking the role," I said. The air shifted. One director leaned forward. "Excuse me?" "I'm stepping down from consideration for CEO," I repeated. "I need time. 6 months. Unpaid leave. Effective immediately." Whispers, raised brows, disbelief. "I've lost something more important than this title," I said. "And if I keep going like this, I'll lose what's left." I left before they could respond. For the first time, I didn't care about optics. Back home, I cleared my calendar, canceled speaking engagements, called the realtor. By the end of the week, I'd sold the penthouse, the skyline view, the luxury, all of it gone. I packed boxes and returned to the house I grew up in, the one with creaky floors and uneven stairs. Emma didn't stop me. She didn't welcome me either. This doesn't fix anything, she said, arms crossed, her tone flat. And don't expect hot meals and hugs just because you decided to remember you have a family. I'm not asking for that, I said. I'm asking for the chance to try. She stepped aside. Let me in, said nothing more. Lily didn't even glance up from her coloring book. Noah gave a short nod and went back to his screen. I slept in the guest room. Each night I sat on the floor and read one of my father's letters. One per day. No skipping. Letter 24. You once told me the world moves too fast. I think you've just been running from stillness. Letter 31. I see the way Emma looks at you when she thinks no one's watching. You're lucky. Don't waste it. And finally, letter 36. Son, if you're reading this, I'm no longer here. But it also means you've finally stopped long enough to see the trail of wreckage behind you. You've paused. That's something. I closed the letter and cried again. Softer this time. Not grief. Something else. Maybe healing. I began small. I programmed my phone to shut off from 5 to 8 p.m. daily, no exceptions. I asked Emma what the kids like to eat. Then I Googled how to cook it. Burn the chicken, ruin the rice. Noah laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in a year. Lily didn't speak much, but she watched. I let her. One night I picked up Emma's old acoustic guitar, still dusty in the closet. You don't play, she said. I'd like to learn, I answered. She raised an eyebrow. Why? Because Lily wants to learn, and I want to do something with her. Not for her. With her. Twist 7 came on a Wednesday evening in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. Emma sat at the counter, arms folded. He asked me not to leave, she said out of nowhere. Who? Your father. I turned off the tap, faced her. He knew I was going to file, a year ago. I couldn't take it anymore. You were a ghost. But he came over, sat on that couch, looked me in the eye and said, I lost your mother to the same hunger. I won't lose my son the same way. Just wait. 6 more months. Please. I gripped the counter, silent. I stayed, she continued. Not for you, for him. Because he still believed you had more inside you than spreadsheets and suits. My voice broke. Do you still believe that? She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. That night, I started something new. Every evening, after the kids went to sleep, I sat in my father's old study, turned on the camera, and spoke. Hi, Dad, I'd begin. It's Jack. I told him what I cooked, what I failed at, what Lily said or didn't. I told him about the guitar, the burnt toast, the silence I was learning to live in. I didn't know who I was talking to. Him? Myself? God? But it helped. Not because he'd hear it, but because maybe I finally was. Lily's birthday was in March. She turned 7. Every year before, I'd called in from whatever hotel room I happened to be staying in. Emma would put me on speaker while the kids blew out candles. I'd promise I'd make it up to them. I never really did. But this year, I was there. I planned the party myself, rented a bounce house, burned 2 cakes before nailing the 3rd. I even learned how to make balloon animals, badly. I didn't check my phone once. At the end of the day, after the last guest left and the kitchen was a mess of frosting and paper plates, Lily slipped a folded note into my hand. It was written in pink marker, on lined notebook paper. Dear Daddy, thank you for not just being there. Thank you for laughing with me. I read it twice, 3 times. The kind of sentence that rewrites the whole narrative of who you've been. Emma found me sitting on the porch that night, the letter still in my hand. "She sees you," she said. "Really sees you." "She didn't before," I said quietly. "No," Emma replied, "because you weren't really here." We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that isn't heavy, just full. "I read something," she said, "from your father, a journal entry he wrote the week before he died." I turned toward her. "He sent me a copy, said to open it when I felt like giving up on you." "What did it say?" She pulled her phone from her pocket and read, "If Jack ever learns to love like a husband and father, not just a provider, this company won't need a CEO. It'll need a man." I swallowed hard. "He never said that to me," I whispered. "He didn't know how," Emma said. "Just like you." The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table and handwrote 17 letters, one to every senior executive who'd left Whitmore Capital in the past 5 years. Not formal offers, invitations. Each one ended the same way. "If we build a company where family is not a compromise but a core value, would you come home?" I mailed them all. 2 days later, I called a family meeting. No agenda, just a new tradition. Every Sunday evening, we'd cook dinner together. No phones, no plans. Noah rolled his eyes but agreed. Lily beamed. Emma said nothing, but she showed up with a recipe card and an apron. Week by week, the edges softened. Jokes returned. So did eye contact. Laughter. Trust didn't rebuild in declarations. It rebuilt in doing the dishes. One Friday night, Emma found me in the living room, tuning Lily's guitar. "I've been thinking," I said, "about us." "Dangerous," she smiled. "I want to start over, from scratch. Would you go on a date with me?" She paused. "You mean like, let me pick you up at 7 kind of date?" I nodded. "Exactly that. Where would we go?" "Anywhere you want, as long as it's somewhere that reminds us why we did this in the first place." She stared at me for a beat, then smiled. "I'll think about it." The next week, Lily had a friend over from school. As I walked in from the store, she said loudly, "That's my dad." "Not Jack, not the guy who lives here." "My dad." She said it like it meant something again. I froze in the hallway, groceries in hand, heart full in a way I didn't know it could be anymore. A few days later, I was invited back to the board. Not to pitch, but to decide. The chair was still vacant. I stood at the end of the table, hands calm. "I'm not taking it," I said. There were gasps, confusion. "I recommend Sarah Brennan. She was my father's assistant for 10 years. She understands what this place was supposed to be, and she believes in what it could still become." I walked out to stunned silence. That night I sat with Emma in our now shared bed and said, "I have an idea." She looked wary. A big idea or midlife crisis? Something in between. I told her I wanted to open a center, not a foundation, not another firm, a place where young people could learn how to pursue ambition without losing connection. We'd call it Whitmore Way, where work meets family. She smiled. "Finally sounds like your name means something more than money." I kissed her hand. "That's the plan." The red dot on the stage blinked alive. Jack stood behind the TEDx podium in a navy suit, no tie. His hands were steady. His voice was calm, but his heart was loud. "I used to believe success was a number," he began. "A revenue line, a promotion, a trophy with your name on it." A pause. The crowd leaned in. "But now I think success is something else. It's a voice. The one you hear late at night when no one else is around. A whisper that says, 'I'm proud of you, Dad.'" The room went silent. He told his story. Not as a CEO or a businessman, but as a son who missed his father's final breath, as a husband who had to relearn how to love, as a father who nearly lost his children to absence. Not violence, not addiction, just absence. He showed photos, letters, read from Lily's birthday note, shared the final lines of his father's 36th letter. Then he ended with this: I stepped off the track to become the man my father hoped I'd be, not the title he wanted me to inherit. Because at the end of the day, no one remembers your LinkedIn profile. They remember your laugh, your stories, the way your eyes lit up when your daughter said your name. He walked off stage to a standing ovation. Twist 10 happened 3 weeks later. The talk went viral. 42 languages, 17 million views in 5 days. It was turned into a short film. Harvard Business School emailed Jack to say it would be taught in their curriculum under Redefining Legacy in Leadership. He didn't feel proud. He felt peace, a kind of calm he had never known, even in his most celebrated moments. One evening, as he closed his laptop, he saw a photo of his father on the bookshelf. The old one, Charles in his 40s, smiling on a fishing boat. Jack walked over, picked up the frame. I'm home now, he whispered. You can rest. And for the first time, he cried without shame, not from guilt, but from release. In the months that followed, life slowed, but deepened. Lily, now 8, applied for a summer program in family psychology. When Jack asked why, she smiled and said, because I want to help dads like you learn how to talk before it's too late. Noah began writing essays about emotional health in boys for his school paper. And Emma? She received an invitation from a women's conference in Seattle. Topic: The unheard partners, loving men who don't know how to speak. She hesitated at first. I'm not a speaker, she told Jack. You're more than that, he replied. You're the reason I found my voice. She went. Her talk brought a crowd of 500 women to tears. She spoke of silence, of anger, of endurance, and of choosing to stay one more time when every part of her wanted to leave. Then came Twist 11. During a routine checkup, Jack's doctor raised a brow. Your EKG's off, he said. Let's run some tests. The results: early-stage heart arrhythmia. Nothing critical, yet. Jack sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes after the appointment, staring at the steering wheel. Then he laughed, out loud, alone. Well played, universe, he said. Later that night, he told Emma. Her eyes widened, her fingers froze on the wine glass. Are you scared? He shook his head. No, not anymore. He placed a hand over his chest. I might not live forever, he said, but I'm not dying alone in an empty penthouse, surrounded by unread emails and unopened memories. They hugged, long and tight. That weekend, the family gathered for Sunday dinner, now a tradition. Noah set the table, Lily helped with the pasta. Emma lit candles, not for occasion, but for warmth. Jack placed his phone face down, then turned it off. He looked around, at the family that had waited for him, forgiven him, rebuilt him. He raised his glass, but didn't make a toast. Instead, he looked at each of them in the eye and said gently, clearly, nothing is more urgent than this moment.